So you're going to start to take these bricks down one by one and take the wall down between you and them. And that starts with why. So you give them the instruction, what they need to do, and you tell them what the effect is in it and why it is beneficial and why it is important and why it needs to be done. And they see the value in what they're doing every day. And they say, okay, I can do this, because they might not be getting a house. They might not be saving for this crazy thing that only you can help them get. So if they don't feel a ton of value in what they're doing, they can probably leave and go do it somewhere else.
Welcome to the Women Choosing Growth podcast, where we bring you practical advice and guidance on how to grow your business and achieve success in your entrepreneurial journey. We feature inspiring stories of success, challenges of growth, and lessons learned from women entrepreneurs, industry experts, and thought leaders who have been through the growing pains inevitable as an entrepreneur. Whether you are just getting started or are looking to scale up your business, our show is designed to provide you with the tools, resources, and community you need to grow your business. Join your host, Tina, a lifelong entrepreneur and business growth advisor, as we explore topics such as marketing, sales, finance, leadership, and personal growth, all tailored specifically to the needs of women entrepreneurs. So if you're ready to grow your business faster and smarter and learn from the experiences of those who have traveled the growth path before you, then this podcast is for you. Thanks for tuning in, and let's get started.
Welcome to another show, ladies. I am your host, Tina Sue, and today we have with us Hannah Dannecker, and she is on a mission to bridge the gap between previously working generations and the Gen Z generation to create an open environment where we can work better together. In 2023, she published her first book entitled, Well, Shit, Time to Grow Up, a post-graduation book in which she explores moments from her childhood, as well as her journey after graduation, sharing how she conquered imposter syndrome, uncertainty, and uncomfortable confrontations. Hannah is a sought-after speaker who is hired by HR managers, business owners, and operations teams to help them learn how to connect with Gen Z workers without pulling their hair out. A member of the Gen Z decade herself, and partner and sales marketing manager at the Better Together group of companies, Hannah brings insight that business leaders cannot get anywhere else about how to work with people just like her. Today, she shares with us 2 must-dos when recruiting the Gen Z generation, and then several great tips on how to retain them in your company. It's great to understand that if you can lead a Gen Z correctly, they will be the most loyal group of people that you've ever hired. Definitely more so than their older generation of the millennials. So let's dive in. Welcome back, ladies. Our guest today is Hannah Dannecker, and she is on a mission to bridge the gap between previous working generations, like myself, and the Gen Z generation to create an open environment where we can all work better together. This is such an important topic for all of our listeners because you can't grow a company without building a team. And the vast majority of us in the workforce is not Gen Zs, or a mixture of Gen Zs and other generations. And they're all different. So in short, we desperately need your help, Hannah, to guide us on how we can recruit and retain our Gen Z staff now and for many years to come. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Tina. I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about this today. It'll be fun.
I know this is your passion. But before we dive in, can you define what Gen Z, what the age group is?
Absolutely. So Generation Z is born between 1997 and 2012. There's 72 million of them across the world right now. There's lots of names that they go by. They can be called the Centennials, the Zoomers, the Rainbow Generation, the Solo Generation. Lots of people have used lots of names, but Gen Z is the most typical term for them.
Is that one of the characteristics to like have to have many different names? Because the rest of the generations, I feel like we're all like, okay, this is where we belong. Let's do it.
No, I don't think so. I think that has just naturally progressed. Lots of people have lots of nicknames for us, but yeah.
Like, let's be different every day. Yeah. What are some characteristics of this generation?
Yeah. So typically, when I start to kind of walk people through who Gen Z is, I start with the very fundamental basics. So we try to go right back to the beginning and try to kind of understand what makes them who they are as a human, which really starts with their childhood. I said to someone the other day, I was like, anyone who's been to therapy, they start with their childhood. They're like, when I was a kid. So that's
No
what
matter
I
how
think.
old you are, that's like
Right?
your issues
Exactly.
start from childhood for sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
And this age
So
group is my kids.
this age is your kids. How old are your kids?
24 and 21.
Okay, exciting. Well, oh my gosh, I'll be so excited to hear if this helps you kind of understand your kids at all. I have a passion, don't get me wrong, for connecting employees and employers and just kind of helping people bridge that gap. But one thing that's funny that I never expected coming out of this whole thing, and I give this presentation kind of across Canada and the US, and I love it. But when parents come up to me and they say, "Oh my gosh, you have just helped me understand my children in a way that I've never been able to before." I've cried so many times just in the middle of a conference. Like, I can't believe it touched you like that. So I would love to know if this helps you get your kids, because that's the part that really means a lot to me. But anyways, your employees, so these Gen Zs, we go back to who are they, what makes them who they are, and kind of we talk about a couple very fundamental things. So technology is huge. Technology has been advancing so much since the time that they were kids. They have grown up with it in a way that no other generation really has. And so this is very different for employers. It means a lot of things for them. It means they're predisposed to adopt the tech that's in your company today and whatever you bring in tomorrow. And on top of that, they're happy to help teach the other people around you and support them as they learn that. So that's all very cool and fun. But I like to explain to people that tech is not just what your CRM is to Gen Zs. Tech is actually to Generation Z what I would describe as a piece of their body. And I say this all the time, and I say it always with a watch right on my wrist, right? Yeah, you've got it. You've got it right there. And we were raised with technology, like babies. Oh my gosh, they literally sell these socks that sit on babies' feet now, and it can help a mom monitor the heart rate, and it can go off as soon as the baby stops sleeping. So from the moment that children are born now, they have technology that's just for them and is a piece of their body and helps do something on their body that nothing else can do. And so I explain to people, I'm like, if I could remember every single birthday that was in my calendar, I'd be the nicest human, the nicest friend, the best family member on the planet. But I can't do that. That's why I have a calendar. If I could remember all of the contacts in my contact sheet, I would be the best salesperson, but I can't. So I have a phone. But all of those things are so accessible and have been so accessible to me that I kind of deem them as this sub body piece that I just kind of get to carry with me everywhere that I go, compared to most other generations who see it as like just a tool that they're using to do the things that need to get done. So it's just a different mentality. So when you say to your Gen Zs, you're like, I'm so glad that you're at work today. Put your phone away, put your computer away, don't have anything on you, and make sure it stays in your backpack apart. Even if they are in a construction, I don't want to go as far as a construction. I don't know enough about that and liabilities to touch that. But even if you're like working with laborers on an instruction line and you say that they can't have their watch on them because they can't get notifications, but one of them has a pregnant wife at home or a sick parent or something, you're debilitating that human to a capacity that they've never been before. And you're keeping them from something, and they are so distracted. It's crazy. So if you just kind of learn to understand how they're using it and why they're using it, and you create those allowances so that you're not tying their hands behind their back, but you're actually allowing them to use it for what it's meant to be used for. And yes, creating security around not abusing that. But sometimes employers just really struggle with that. So tech is like the very first thing that I say. But do you see any of that in your kids
I'm
or in
just
your
thinking, I
employees
was
in the
actually
past?
comparing it to me more so. Like, yeah, I mean, my phone is handy to have all my contacts. I put notes and stuff in there. But if someone said I couldn't have my phone with me during the day, I would like, it goes back to the old school days. Like you call the employer and the employer goes and taps you on the shoulder and says, someone has a phone call for you. My kids have never like, that's how it used to
That's
work.
hilarious.
Oh
What?
yeah. Even when I was pregnant with my kids, if I had to reach my husband at work, you had to call the front desk and they would page him. And then we didn't have cell phones back then. Right.
Oh
So
my
like you had
gosh.
to, you're so like, oh my God, that happened. Yes.
That's
And that
crazy.
was,
It's like a page. You didn't even have a pager? Like what?
they weren't carrying a pager. No, like you called the front desk receptionist at the business to get a hold of your loved one or your whatever to send a
So
message. They'd get it, over the PA, or someone would go tap them on the shoulder. So when you were mentioning that it's a piece of them, I'm like, no, I could actually. I mean,
like
yes, I use my
really.
phone during the day, but I would not be as distraught without having my phone because I know the earlier version of how we lived without these technology things. My kids, my kids are pretty darn cool. I don't know if I don't know. That'd be interesting. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's
Take their phone away for a day at 24.
yes.
See what happens.
See what happens.
Yeah. See what
I
happens.
think they'd probably. It's funny. I was just talking about this with my dad last night because my mom just had surgery, and she and my dad have been going for walks, and he's been leaving his phone at home, and very, very intentionally. He's never really done this before. He's trying really hard to kind of separate. And he said last night he got to an hour and a half because they got pulled into a neighbor's house and were having a chit chat. An hour and a half later, and he's like, I actually need to leave. Like I need to go get my phone because I cannot be away from it. It's a funny and sad addiction, honestly, that kind of starts to happen. If you have better boundaries with that, that's phenomenal. But Gen Z struggles with that. So that's the tech piece. But that's
tech piece. Okay.
That's kind of just one side of it. And then I talk a lot about human connection and globalization. And so Gen Zs have seen the world as a much more accessible place than other generations have before. And so a lot of Gen Zs grow up, they want to figure out how to get a visa and move to a different country and live somewhere else, or they backpack and want to travel because all of these things through, and this is why it's important, technology have been seen as accessible. And so they have all of these hopes and dreams that have started to spew from the time that they are kids. And that's really interesting for employers and can be great. I mean, I'm from the transportation industry and we have a driver shortage. And this specifically is exciting to me to see because I think that this means that there's going to be more truck drivers in the future, people who see that as an opportunity and they take it so that they can travel and see the world. And so this is a big piece of who they are. And that's going to be great for people who are sales territory reps and they get to travel, companies who are looking for anybody who is doing those over the road. Sorry, that's that's a different term.
Right over the road.
Not the right words. But any of these like travel nurses, so much easier to hire in the future as these people kind of start to excel in their careers and come into these places. But that globalization piece is really, really big. And then finally, you've got COVID-19, which is the biggest piece and kind of like the last little chip on the block that kind of sent them into their adulthoods. They were 14 to 25-ish when the pandemic started. And this happened when they were just starting high school, just finishing high school, just starting university, just finishing university, and kind of just starting their first careers. And everybody from their parents to their employers to the government in every single country across the world said, go home and you can do what you're doing from home. You cannot be out right now. And so from every piece of authority ever, they have been taught this concept that flexibility is an option. And so that's really shaped how they've seen things based on globalization and technology. So they're going to have really big differences, understanding that they can be remote, that they've been remote, that they've been successfully remote, and that they can do it from anywhere. So it's creating this like whirlwind of a new type of employee, which is this remote work-life culture that we've seen. And it's escalated across other generations. Don't get me wrong. Other people also like this, have also experienced similar things and are also adopting it. Mm-hmm. But it is kind of the makeup of what the average Gen Z is coming to be in the workplace. So those are kind of the three really, really fundamental things that shape them.
Yes. And I didn't mention my 5 stepchildren. So when you,
okay.
Yes. So we have 7 together. And the description that you just mentioned is literally the age, the age group. We're right now 17 to 27 in that group. So we had a couple in college, we had a couple in high school at the time, but we just drove one to San Diego from Wisconsin to San Diego to go live her life after college. And she's like, well, I don't know if I'll stay here. I'll probably travel to a couple more countries before I settle down and have a kid, and isn't working the career that she went to get her master's in because she's got time to do that. And I hear that a lot in that mindset, right? Because career is career not necessarily the priority in the same way for this generation as it was for especially like my parents and even a little bit of my generation. It's like we've got
definitely
time,
not.
Right? Like Gen Z's got all the time in the world. It feels.
Yeah, definitely not. And I think the extra shift, pick up the hours and save the extra to purchase the house. Mm-hmm. And most Gen Zs right now are not even really dreaming about owning a house anymore. We see the market and we're like, yeah, I really don't know that I'll ever be able to get there. So why don't I just do something that I enjoy and pay what I have to pay to keep renting? But that save, bundle, build, nest mentality that's been so separate for boomers as they came back from war, I assume, from Gen X as they went through that lock key generation of I'm missing my mom, she's kind of transitioning to work. All of these things play effect, right? Mm-hmm. And so that created for older generations, again, I don't know, I've never been one, what I would imagine to be a very hard desire to have a home. And every Gen Z just spent 5 years at home and they're like, get me out of here. Sure. So it's just so different. It's just so different. They went through a literal isolation in their houses and everybody else is like, no, that's what I'm craving. Like, I want everyone to be home. So it's so different. And it's so interesting to see how that plays out. Do you see that in any of your other kids that they're looking for homes and stabilities, or are they kind of on that, I'll see how it goes, I'm interested in I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely see them not in the whole like settle down with someone. I think buying a home is when they settle down, which is closer to 30 now, not 20 like it was in previous generations. They're like, got plenty of time, right? Like again, like all the time in the world, which is true. They're going to probably live longer. And so like that is more of like in the future, settle down. When I settle down with a spouse, I will then look to buy a home. And in the meantime, I'm going to travel. I think as you're describing these generations, I look through all of mine that I've been part of. Like my grandparents were vastly different. They were the ones who were washing out Ziploc bags because they couldn't afford to, we didn't know when we were getting the
Ziploc
next
bags.
News. Yeah. Like, which my parent and myself never washed out a Ziploc bag, thankfully. But so then my parents were that saved, right? So they're, how old are they? They're in their 70s now, like early 70s. So the boomers, and they were the ones who are working, and both of them, like when they retired, my dad had been there 40 some years at the same place.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
literally
incredible.
Started there at 19, but that generation is very normal. Like you found your career and you retired there. And my mom too, I think she had like 30 years in. But I think that's what developed the generation that I'm in. So I'm in my 50s, born in 73. And so we saw our parents never doing vacations and doing the whole save and wait for retirement thing. But so my generation was the one traveling. I took my kids everywhere, right? So I never traveled until I was 23. My kids were traveling at a very young age because I wanted them to see the world because I was learning it at the same time as them, basically. So I think that's where that Gen Z is seeing the world not only on their phones and more accessible, but because I think my generation is like, we're still saving for that retirement, but we're not doing it like our parents.
Yes,
and our work
absolutely
habits are different because we are still looking for careers, but not in the, I'm going to get a job and as long as I get a payroll, I'm going to stay there.
Yeah.
Which is just getting kind of more lenient as we raise these Gen Zs is kind of how I'm seeing it.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, because part of that COVID piece is that most Gen Zs, compared to millennials were very, and I don't have stats on millennials, that's not what I try to be an expert in, but most millennials, as I understand it, were very much the grass is greener on the other side. I would really like to hop. I would make that hop for an extra $2,000 a year or $5,000 a year, or whatever that is. Most Gen Zs, however, experienced the recession when they were children, and so they saw their parents save. And then they're experiencing the pandemic as they're trying to become responsible for their money, right? So 14 to 25, you're trying to become responsible for your own finances. So they're experiencing the pandemic, followed by this new pending, I think it's a recession. They haven't really admitted that yet, whatever you want to call
2 years
it.
of
waiting. It's not good. So whatever we're in, it's bad. But now this is where we stand. And so Gen Zs, I think it's 72% of Gen Zs say that they want to stay where they are, and they know the value and what it means to stay where they are, and that they're deciding to not leave where they currently are. So many Gen Zs. And I would say that I've experienced this. That's not my data. It's from a great book, Connectable. You should find it. It's phenomenal. But it's lost my train of thought. My gosh, let me bring it right back. Hold on. 72%. Yeah, they want to stay. They just want to stay. We've seen that within our own company. Sorry. Yeah. Saw that data, found that stat, but we also have had lots of Gen Zs. And I mean, we've done 4 rounds, and 25% of the Gen Zs that we've originally started have come back and got hired onto our internal team, from students to staff. So like we've seen it follow through, which is really impressive. So that's cool for employers too, because it makes it easier for you to invest in them, because you have hope that they'll last a lot longer. So
especially those that have been recruiting through the millennials who are hopping.
Yes, absolutely.
So there's hope. There's hope.
There is hope. There is hope. Yeah.
Hey, incredible women entrepreneurs. It's Tina Sue here. I know you're juggling a lot, growing your business, managing family time, and trying to find balance. Deep down, you know you're capable of so much more, but maybe fear or uncertainty is holding you back from achieving that dream business, that dream life that you deserve. That's why I created the Dream Big, Plan Bigger guide, a game changer for your business growth. This isn't just another goal-setting document. It's your personal roadmap to achieving the impossible. Imagine having a clear vision of your biggest dreams, breaking through the barriers that hold you back, and reigniting that passion that fuels your journey. This guide is your roadmap to doing just that without compromising your family time or your personal priorities. You deserve to see your business thrive and still have time for what you love. Let's take this journey together. Download your free Dream Big, Plan Bigger workbook now at tina-sue.com and start making those dreams a reality. Now, let's get back to the show. So recruiting, being more flexible, how about you share it? Because I'm just going to reword what I think you said. But let's start at recruiting. What are some of the must-dos or things to think about to make it a good environment? And then we'll talk about retaining.
Yes. So my first thing that I would say in recruiting is, where are you posting? What are you doing? Where are you starting? I would go back to referrals right now. I think that, and I talk about this a lot, Gen Zs are a very, very influenced generation. Since they were little, everybody has been trying to influence Generation Z through everything that they open, whether it's in their classroom or at their office or on their phone or in their home. It doesn't matter. They're still being influenced from somebody. And so they have these really crazy walls built up around them. And so using a referral, somebody that they genuinely trust, if you're talking to a friend, you're going to be so much more excited than if you're just seeing an ad somewhere. So I would go back to craziness, just human connections, referrals, and trying to hire people that way. But there's so much more than that you can do. You can go into online and socials, and you can use all of those avenues that they're very used to using to also try and connect with them. That's just a lot harder to make a real difference and get the real people who you're looking for. It takes a really long time to kind of build that brand awareness that a Gen Z would find credibility in. It's going to take time and a lot of content, but you can do that. You can go online, you can go on social, so you can do Indeed, which is fine, but it's not the only spot. You should be on LinkedIn, you should be on TikTok, you should be on Facebook, you should be joining the groups, you should be going to schools, doing job fairs. There's so many places that you can connect with people. It's crazy. But on top of that, Gen Zs have very, 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 very small attention spans.
When you did this, I knew you were going to say yes.
They're so little. So let's look at how you're introing these job descriptions. How are you starting them? I like to start them with questions. So we do, on Indeed, you pay for the more people who click your advertisement. So you can get rid of some of those people up front with the requirements. Are you hiring a surgeon who has 10 years of experience? I would say that up top. Do you have 10 years of experience in surgery? You're going to save yourself a lot of money and a lot of reading and a lot of time in the end. But more than that, you're going to also make it interesting. So let's say you're hiring for labor and they have to move 50-pound boxes every day. Do you hate going to the gym? ? Do you want a job that leaves you stronger than you are today? ? And you can just kind of use some of these things that are available to you to grab their attention. And then you have the follow-up, which is the job description and all of the information. You do have to give all of that to them, but I would say, where are you doing it? And what are you saying are the two things that you can kind of first look at for sure.
I like that. The creativeness of that. Do you hate going to the gym? Do you want to be stronger tomorrow than you are today? Well, we've got the job for you.
Absolutely. Think outside the box. And you got to give them all the information, right? We're not sugarcoating what this is. You're moving 50-pound boxes. It's going to be hard. But you're still giving them that information in a way that is accessible to them. And Gen Zs have seen pretty things their whole life. They were born in a generation where marketing is transformed every single day, and they're seeing something prettier, something newer. So they're seeking that, but they're also really looking for transparency. And so you got to make sure you give them all the information as well.
Okay. I like that.
But
was it
you hiring any? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. When I think back to, oh my gosh, probably this was in the early 2000s, mid 2000s maybe, and all the job descriptions were fluffy, as more creative of the job description, instead of, like you said, this is we need a surgeon who's got 5 years of experience. We would hide that because it would be a community liaison expert, what WTF, what does that what is that, right? But that was who we were hiring at that time, wanted the fancy title that no one else had, that you had to read 3 pages. Yeah,
titles
exactly.
mean nothing. Titles mean nothing
to Gen Zs. Yeah.
Literally nothing.
Yeah.
And that's actually a thing too, a thing to note, that Gen Zs have seen people holding titles their whole life, putting these titles on different things because they have the opportunity to change whatever it says on LinkedIn or whatever it says on their Instagram or whatever it says anywhere. And so there's not that much credibility behind a title anymore, unfortunately.
That's really important from a recruiting standpoint, to know that definitely have to be changing the narrative.
Yeah.
On that.
Yeah. Not that it doesn't help somebody understand, but it's much more about an informative piece than it is about a bragging right.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
least I think it should be, personally.
Yeah. Well, and
and we
you're
see
seeing
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see
Yeah.
it in recruiting. You live it and you're recruiting in that world and teaching that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. So let's say we do a great job at recruiting these Gen
Mm-hmm.
Zers.
Mm-hmm.
How do we keep them within the company?
Yeah. So I like to go back to that illustration around Gen Zs have these really big walls around them. People ask me all the time, they're like, do Gen Zs have a bigger wall than other generations before them? People like to know because they seem, or the perception is, the myth is that it's harder to connect with Gen Zs than it has been to connect with other generations. And I can't speak to that. I haven't been a different generation trying to connect with one below me yet. And I definitely don't know what it was like for others to connect with millennials or X or boomers in the past. But what I can explain is that based on the way that technology and the influencers have been trying to influence Gen Zs their entire life, Gen Zs have built this really big wall around them. Again, like right back to the disregard
COVID.
for title. Yeah, this disregard for title, they're like, all of these people have been telling me to do something my whole life. They've been trying to tell me to buy this product. They've been trying to tell me to act this way. They've been trying to tell me that this would get me rich and famous, or whatever that might be. And so they've built this resilience around them against all of these people who have these titles. So they have a disregard for authority, not a disrespect. They respect authority, but they don't find everything that authority says to them as 100% truth anymore, which is really different from other generations. So you need to come in beside a Gen Z and say, hey, here's what we're working on. And here's why we're working on it.
Yeah.
Here's what this does. So you're going to start to take these bricks down one by one and take the wall down between you and them. And that starts with why. So you give them the instruction, what they need to do, and you tell them what the effect is in it and why it is beneficial and why it is important and why it needs to be done. And they see the value in what they're doing every day. And they say, okay, I can do this, because they might not be getting a house. They might not be saving for this crazy thing that only you can help them get. So if they don't feel a ton of value in what they're doing, they can probably leave and go do it somewhere else. Now, they don't necessarily want to. They crave stability. They want to stay. But we'll keep going. If they're not getting what they need from you, they will leave. So there is that piece of why, giving them value, helping them understand why they're doing what they're doing. And then you want to give them something yummy, is what I call it.
Okay.
Most Gen Zs are coming into a role that's not that much fun, right? You've got those very low base roles. It is making a lot of phone calls to try and hire that person who's phenomenal. It is pushing the pen from this side of the line to this side of the line. It is putting the cap on the pen as you hand it to the next person on the assembly line. It is sending 50 emails a day, or going and knocking on 50 doors and handing out brochures, or whatever it is, right? Most Gen Zs are coming in for that filing kind of role, that very base level role, which needs to be done. And I don't disregard that. But most companies have a lot of stuff that needs to be done. So if you give that Gen Z something that they would deem as fun for an hour or 2 hours a day, something that they deem as interesting or intriguing or exciting, it doesn't need to be super flashy, but maybe you write articles so that you improve your SEO on your website, and you let that Gen Z write an article once a week. Maybe you start a social media page that they can create the graphics for and do all of the commenting for. Maybe you can do whatever you want. You can get crazy creative. You can let them go to a school and do a school tour once a month or twice a month and share with the community what your company does. You can do anything with this person, but give them something that they would deem as exciting to come back for again and again. Yes, the work that needs to be done, but also that something yummy that keeps them coming back. And then kind of as this is going down, as you're helping them understand their why, as you're helping give them something yummy, as you're creating a relationship with this human, really you're mentoring them instead of managing them. What I ask people to do is to listen, to learn to understand, and then to understand before you speak. And typically what this means is we have Gen Zs that come into our organization all the time and we're like, here's the stack of paperwork, go put it away. And they're like, okay. And they're terrified and they don't know what to do. And they're so scared of putting the wrong thing in the wrong spot. And they don't know why they have to file it and why isn't it all digitalized? And well, because this is really important information. And maybe it's in a nurse's office and maybe it needs to be the right charts. And here's how you can make sure that all of this is done properly. But if you didn't take the time to sit next to them and say, do you have any questions for me? Do you understand what I have asked of you? Can you re-explain to me what I've asked you to do? And have that like just really intentional conversation with them. You're never going to get to the other side. So you listen to learn, you learn to understand, and then you understand to speak. And once you've kind of gone through all of these stages, you can look at this Gen Z and their wall is gone. Once you've created that relationship with that human, once they understand the value that they have, once they're excited to come back to work, once they trust you and they feel a respect for you that's mutual back and forth, they will be so excited to learn anything that you tell them because they're craving human connection like I would imagine no other generation before them, because we've been locked away. We've been isolated. We've been using technology to connect with people. And while it does allow us to do that, it's not the same as it's been for other generations before us. Other generations have had different experiences that we've just lacked. And so they're craving it and they're missing it. But it is a really long, long journey to get there with them. And it takes a while.
It sounds like once an employer, team leader, whatever, works for that while to take down those bricks, that it seems like that generation then would be dedicated, because I'm thinking if they skipped and went to another job, they've got to go through that whole taking down my walls process again. Versus,
absolutely.
Yeah, the generation before them was like, okay, I'm going to try something new. I'm in 6 months. I'm bored. I'm going to go do something new. It sounds like Gen Zs are cautious in the beginning as they're learning and making sure that they're making an impact. I hear that a lot. Like they want to make an impact on the world. They want to make a difference, right? Whether it is putting the cap on the pen. But then once they tear down those protective walls, like that employee probably is pretty darn dedicated. Am I hearing you correctly?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And maybe the funny thing is maybe it is just putting the cap on the pen, but maybe that cap keeps the pen wet. And when it goes in the box, it stays a good product. And when the product gets shipped, it goes to a school. And then a kid who's learning something really important unboxes that box and takes the cap off, and they have the opportunity to learn something new. But how would that employee ever know what the benefit was on the other side if that employer didn't say, hey, here's what we're really doing. Like, here's the grandiose perspective. And here's why you're doing what you're doing every single day. Otherwise, it just gets so boring. And they're like, oh, all I do is put caps on pens. It's like, or you give people the opportunity to learn and improve themselves and be the best employees or students or whatever possible because they have a pen. Like, it's so simple, it could be anything. But yeah,
you made that sound thinking. You made that sound so like that a pen was so much more than I think of a pen, right? But it is like you're helping a student learn cursive. Maybe I don't even think they teach cursive anymore, but they should be.
Or you're helping a loved one write a letter, or a friend write a card, or whatever. Like every human, and this is why I love staffing so much. Like oh my gosh, I just love it because every single job helps the economy move. in some way, shape, or form. And this kind of came back to me in the midst of COVID, because we had the whole pandemic with the truckers, and the whole thing in Canada was crazy. And, thank a trucker, because everything you can see and touch and feel first arrived on a truck. Everything you love around you that is not a human first arrived on a truck. And even the human that you love the most in the world was sent to a hospital in the stomach while in a transportation device. So it's just like you can always zoom so far back and see such a crazy value in what everybody does to contribute to society. But it's really hard to get there by yourself, specifically when you're overwhelmed by the enormity of the frustration, by putting the cap on the pen, when you're pissed because you feel like you don't know what you're doing and you don't see the value and you're just showing up day in and day out. You need that mentor to come alongside of you and say, look, what you're doing, it's incredible. And that's so amazing, because my gosh, what an opportunity it gives every other generation to have the impact. And, I like to say to people, it's a blessing to be able to influence the next generation when they are still influential. But we do need to take the opportunity to do it, because by next year, oh my gosh, 2025, 27% of the workforce will be Gen Zs. So it's a lot of us.
All right, that's amazing. I would love to recap that. There's so much great information there. Can you bullet point that for our listeners? Because you just shared so many good nuggets. So we have recruiting and retention of Gen Zs. Recruiting, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a lot of verbal vomit. Let me take it down a little bit for you into a pinpointed note.
We'll put it in bullet points.
So when you're recruiting them, you want to look at where you're putting the information that's going out there. Is it on platforms? Is it in front of people that will be seeing it? Is it in front of the people that you want to be seeing it? And then what are you saying in it? Are you grabbing their attention? Are you being authentic? Authentic? Is that the right word?
Authentic.
Thank you. That's the proper word. Authentic. Are you being authentic? Just like me in that moment, not knowing how to say that word. So are you
editing?
Right? Are you being authentic with them about what's going on? So it's your recruitment part. Where are you doing it? What are you saying? And then on the other side, the retention. Are you telling them their why? Are you giving them something yummy? Are you taking each brick down step by step? Listen to learn to understand to speak. And then finally, once you're at that final step, they'll be so dedicated. They'll be so excited to have a lasting relationship with you forever. And they'll be able to sustain it. So yeah, that's it from a bird's eye.
It seems simple, but I totally can understand being from a different generation, or generations even older than me, that are trying to recruit this different mentality, different style, that they needed to hear this from you, because there is a vast difference from the generation even above me. There's a little more flexibility, a little more your generation actually even has probably more passion for what you're doing, in the world than generations before me.
Yeah. It's so hard to speak to, but they definitely show up with a lot of energy and care, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we already have a generation, like you said, under you, younger than you.
Yes.
That'll be a whole new challenge.
Gen Alpha, they get a way better name. More to learn.
Yes. Well, and that generation was the young ones in COVID and doing kindergarten and, through seventh grade probably, or sixth grade on an iPad with their parents teaching them. I feel bad for that generation. I'm so glad my kids were in college and high school.
I'm so excited to learn about what that has kind of on the other side. Like, what is that going to do to them?
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, I'm so interested.
To see them as adults. Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
They're not there yet. Well, I appreciate having you here so much today. We'll put some links so folks can follow you. And if they want more information or to hire you to help them through this process, I will have all those links in the show notes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been so great.
All right, take care.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please be sure to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. The Women Choosing Growth Show is not just another podcast. It's a tribe of women helping each other grow. So please, share this podcast with all the women entrepreneurs that you would love to see succeed. If you'd like to know more about customized business advising through Cultivate Advisors, download business tools, or sign up for upcoming events, visit www.womenchoosinggrowth.com. Once again, that's www.womenchoosinggrowth.com. Remember, we are in this together. See you on the next one.